Hey, everybody. My producer is the best. She always gives me hand claps. I just love it. um, Today on Essential Pedagogy Podcast, this podcast was created to give outsiders an inside view of public education. I'm Steph the Educator, and I've been in education, I think it's 22 years. At the end of this year, I will have 22 years in education, y'all. I've been doing this a long time. Do I look like I'm just a few years older than 22? Anyway, my knees and my ankles sometimes feel like I am a lot older because I am a lot older than 22. Today, we are doing part 2 of Tips for Teachers. And I want to talk to you guys about a couple of things. First of all, I want to address my brain fart from last 2 weeks ago when I was trying to tell you about this book by Daryl Williams Jr. It was 99% human and 1% amazing. I interviewed him, I think, the third week or the first week. No. It had to be the third week of January or the first week of February. One of those of 2024 this year. I bought his book and I read it. First, I saw a reel he had on Facebook, and I thought he was a real positive person in education. And sometimes that is hard to find. So, and he was a male, and I thought that was unique. And so I told him, I reached out to him and I told him I wanted to interview him, and he gave me some times and dates. But he has a real good book for educators, and not just teachers, but for administrators too, and how to coach teachers and how to just be there for them and have a different outlook about education. Anyway, that is the book I was talking about. One of the books I was talking about last 2 weeks ago. And I couldn't remember the name of the book or the author. And his name is Daryl Williams Jr., 99% human, 1% amazing. And he's just so positive. Go and check the book out. If you are an educator, do that, because he is just phenomenal. And I thought a lot of the tips in that book was applicable, and it resonated with me. I thought it was awesome. And it's modern day, which I like. I want to talk to you guys because discipline is a big deal in the classroom. Wow. There are some do's and don'ts with discipline in the classroom. Some don'ts is, and it's a positive don't ever let up. Sometimes you feel like you're not making a difference. Things are not changing, but they are. You're making small changes or that you don't recognize. And so it's good to have a second pair of eyes to see what you're doing, what you tried before, and what's going on now. And that leads me to the second one of don't be afraid to adjust and reorganize. When we see that we're doing something over and over again and we see it's not working at all, then you see that, y'all? If y'all have any questions, y'all let me know, because I have opened it up for questioning live on YouTube. I forgot to do that. I just mentioned that I was going to say that. Okay, y'all, I'm on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Essential Pedagogy, and I want you to subscribe. And if you want, you can press the notification and you won't miss a show. I'm on first and third Thursdays. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them there. And I just posted right there live. I thought it was so cool. Anyway, so I wanted to let you guys know right away that, how to find me. If you are confused about like trying to scroll through all the different types of podcasts, if you want to find me directly on YouTube, you can find me directly on YouTube, Essential Pedagogy Podcast. And without further ado, we'll just keep going on with this list, okay? So adjusting and reorganizing. If you see things going down the toilet, I mean, really down the toilet. And there's a difference between not seeing results that you want, but it's not a disaster, and then a disaster, right? Um, Things that are dues for the classroom is equity in the classroom and making equity look equal, because equity doesn't always mean things are equal, and people get that confused. I want to give you a picture of equity and equal. So say, for instance, you have someone that's 2 feet tall, you're giving them a crate to stand on to see over a fence, 2 crates, where someone doesn't need a crate. And then there's other people that need just 1 crate to see over the fence. You are creating an equitable environment, but it's not equal. You're giving a person extra so that they can see over the fence. What's challenging is making equity look equal. And a lot of great teachers do this seamlessly. But if you are an amateur, then it can look like you're giving someone more chances, favoritism in the classroom, that you don't, that that they may have things in place where you have to give them extra chances, but you can do things where it doesn't look like it. Okay. And I want to give you another tip. It's a don't. A don't is sarcasm is reserved for friendships and not in the classroom. And I would say that's a good one. I would say in any professional setting. So even if you're in with your peers, your coworkers, your cohorts, your just associates at work, I would refrain from sarcasm towards a certain person or a certain group. And we'll go into that real deep, because I feel like in our profession, I was just talking to the producer here. Kesha we just talked. Anyway, we were just talking about how being called as a teacher, and I feel like if you're in teaching a long time, longer than 2-3 years, this is your calling for the time being. And if you're called to do this, then you have a responsibility to do this professionally and to the best of your ability. And also, when you're called to do something, your triggers are going to be pushed, because you're supposed to learn lessons from your calling. You're supposed to be able to change lives for your calling, because you're not called to be destructive. You're called to be constructive. So there's a difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. And so we're going to talk about that sarcasm and how there's some examples of this and bad examples in the workplace and in the classroom. So when we talk about consistency, it's going to be hard to be consistent with little things that you feel like people should already know. But we can't take for granted that people or little children or older children know certain things. When children walk into our classroom, we have to treat uh, the environment as if it's a blank slate and they know nothing. In fact, it is good for you to react as if they don't know anything or they did not have any home training. And you don't have to approach it that way, but approach it in, friends, in this room, we put our paper towels in the garbage or the trash, if you call it that. Um, Friends, in this room, so we are going to approach little things with high regard and consistency. So if you want a clean classroom and you want them to make sure it's clean, we have to be consistent in having our timer set before they are to be dismissed to go to a different classroom or go to specials or go to lunch. Then you have to set a timer to provide the time, adequate time for them to get ready, look over the classroom, and then dismiss them in a timely fashion. I'm going to say this. I've had a couple of jobs, and it's the most time sensitive job I've ever had. We have to be in a classroom at a certain time. I I have a funny story about McDonald's. So McDonald's was trying to give us free breakfast um, for Teacher Appreciation Week last spring. And I went to McDonald's and I had 3 orders for teachers besides myself. And they didn't want to honor, because you have to have your badge, your teacher badge, right? So I was like, oh, I got the time because I have like second period off and they were still serving breakfast, and people were like, oh, McDonald's is serving breakfast, but I had to be here for tutoring at 7 o'clock, and I don't have enough time to stop by McDonald's to be here on time. So I collected these IDs and I took them to McDonald's, and they didn't want to honor all these IDs. I was like, listen, can I talk to you for a second? I said, do you have children at our school? If you may not have children at our school, but you work here at this local McDonald's, and do you have children? What time did you get your children off to school? They're already at school, aren't they? And somebody had to be there with them. Teachers. Now, you're here making breakfast, and those teachers are at school with your children. We just want a biscuit. We just want a biscuit. That's all. But I'm here as a representative because I am able to come because I'm not on duty. There are teachers who've been with your children since this morning when you drop them off so that you could be at work early. So please, can we have the biscuits? Anyway, she gave me the biscuits, and we got free breakfast for Teacher Appreciation Week. It was funny. Anyway, so consistency. We have to be consistent with little things. So we have to set our timers, and we have to say, oh my gosh, it's time to clean up. You have 3 minutes. Now, I repeat this. My end of the class speech is, there's the timer. It is time to get ready to go. You need to pack your things and stand behind your chair when you are ready to go. To indicate you are ready to go, you need to stand behind your chair. So I want my chairs pushed in. I want my floor cleaned up. So I'm like, oh my gosh, looks like table 5 doesn't have all their things out from under the tables. Oh my gosh, I see paper under this. And I teach 7th grade. So instead of having student complaining about students not automatically doing what you want them to do, you set the parameters to get what you need to have done. If it irritates you having all this paper on the floor and them leaving their pencils and all of these things, you set the time for them to adequately have enough time to pack up and get your class to reset it for how you want it to be when students come in next time. Okay. Don't be afraid to adjust and reorganize. And when we say this, um, sometimes things are a disaster and they don't work anymore. Don't do that, friend. That is like doing something. That's the crazy thing, right? They say it's crazy when you do things over and over the same way and expect different results. Friend, let's reorganize. It's okay. You don't have to stay committed to an erroneous procedure. Okay. Um, equity in the classroom. So I have a student that frequently blurts out. So we've been working on this skill of not blurting out and blurting things that is inappropriate. Okay. This student would have more chances than not than other students because of a disability. And when I say disability, it could be a myriad of things. It could be Tourette's. It could be autism. It could be a lot of things that would make you have to give that student 2 crates instead of just on a flat surface trying to see over a fence to gain their education. Um, you know, this child is middle school, and so you would think they would know better, but because of the disability, they struggle with this skill. And it could be a goal that is set um, by parents and teachers and other leaders in the school. So we have tried to get the blurting under control, but now the student is choosing to raise their hand and then say an inappropriate thing in class. And usually, when students do this, they're trying to get attention, they're trying to make people laugh, they're trying to push a button in the teacher. And so, this is where we are going to learn how to be professional. So the actual thing that happened in class is um, I, I was going over the lesson and the lesson was going well. I was checking for understanding. We reviewed some things. So I tried to go with a structure of we're going to review something from yesterday. We are going to do something together, or I'm going to do something, and we're going to do something together. And I'm going to ask probing questions to see if various students understand what we're doing, how we're doing. Sometimes ask the same question so that everybody understands what we're doing, how we're doing it. And then I let them do it on their own. And so before we get to this part of the lesson, independent learning and practicing, then what we do is we talk to the students and ask them, do we understand what we're doing? Can you please repeat to me as a class, what are we going to do next? Okay. Okay. And then after that, what are we going to do? Okay. Do we understand that the next step after that is going to be, what would that be? And then they all say this or whatever. If you have any personal questions or requests, I need you to raise your hand now. The student that has um, extra crates that I try not to let be obvious in class, uh, raise their hand and blurted, I want to drop out. And I said, well, that is not a valid request at this time. And it ended the whole situation. Instead of, you shouldn't say that, put your hand down. So a lot of times if a teacher is expecting a child to act up and then the child raises their hand because we've had a history of you blurting out inappropriate things, then the teacher's inclination would be, put your hand down. Well, I was like, okay, everybody has an opportunity to ask the teacher a question. So I'm not going to shut that question down. What I am going to say, question or comment, I am going to say that's not a valid question or request. And then I will go and talk to the student personally, maybe not even right away, because then other students are looking at me like, what is she going to do? Is she going to go talk to him? Is he getting in trouble? So I may go around to see if other kids are, or other students are managing their work independently well. So that's a way I can provide equity in a classroom and make it seem equal, right? So I allowed him more chances, um, even through his small disruptions, and then went on with the lesson. So I made it die down. That was not as difficult for me as some people. Um, Another difficult situation would be when a child wants to be argumentative. When a child wants to be argumentative and deny the fact that they may have been talking or being disruptive, the best way you can cut down an argument is not to argue, is to just say, I asked you to be quiet. And, but it wasn't me. I asked you to be quiet. But it wasn't me. I asked you to be quiet. You can just repeat yourself and not engage in the argument, because they want you to say, but no, I will talk to them later. You worry about yourself. You do the, you can shut it down, friends. You can shut it down. You're not in um and you will be inclined. Sometimes students will say things where it will push your buttons, and you have to be professional enough to not let sarcasm be in your mouth. And that's one of the things I pray about. I say a prayer of, Lord, let the meditation of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable under thy sight. For you are my strength and you are my redeemer. It's a prayer I pray just about every day, because, children can push your buttons. But what we can do is remember our professionalism, remember that we have control over what we say, and we have power to respond and not react. And I think that will go with any work from home too. Yeah, these kids will work from home too. In any professional setting, we have the power to respond and not react. Point blank. So sarcasm is reserved for friendship. Let's talk about that. Now, when a student pops off at the mouth, you don't have to join them. You don't have to do a dig. Like, that's why you need your homework. Friend, we don't have to go there. We don't have to go there. Sarcasm is reserved for friends. If you are sarcastic with students, sometimes that can come back to bite you because they are recorders. They will regurgitate what you said, sometimes twist it, and tell their mothers, their fathers, their stepdaddies, their whatevers. And then you're going to have to explain your words. Sarcasm can be hurtful. And if you don't know the person and you don't have a personal relationship with them, it is not a place in the workplace nor the classroom. So sometimes we have colleagues, co-workers, cohorts, all these people that we work with. I want to give you an example. So if you have been asked to help a coworker in a certain area, say for instance, you are more tech savvy than the coworker, and the coworker asks you to come over and say, "Hey, I need help with this platform. It's not working for me. Can you help me?" Um, Friends, it would not be in the best interest for you to come over and say, "Why do you have so many tabs open?" I mean, that's ridiculous. You look like a scattered brain. Well, friend, they didn't ask for your opinion on that. And sometimes when people are called to the table for some of their words and sarcastic reactions, they hide behind the word joke. Well, you joke with your friends. I know, right? You joke with your friends, and every friend is different, and you know how to joke with them individually. Well, if you're at work, if you're in the classroom, you don't know these people well enough to joke with them. That's for a personal relationship. It has no place in a professional setting, friends. So I want to tell you that you need to refrain from sarcasm in the classroom. I want to address things like, so we talked about respond and react, which is really um, being responding to a action or comment, or reacting to a comment. um, I want to talk to you guys about questions and directives. So when we talk about discipline in the classroom, or controlling classroom management, that's what they call it instead of discipline. Classroom management is when we manage the classroom without having to write people up, right? And when you manage a classroom, then you have a class where things did not escalate to the point where you had to write someone up, or someone gets to yelling, or someone feels unsafe, right? So one of the things is, when you give a directive. When you ask a question, it should be academically. So what I mean is, we are not going to ask a student to stop talking. We're going to give them a directive to stop talking. Um, so we are saying, please stop talking. That is a directive, not a question. So we do not expect a response other than acknowledging that you gave me a directive, right? Or that you understand the directive. So then there should not be a back and forth with this. This is not asking, this is a directive. And then when a child doesn't understand that, you have to say, I gave you a directive. Your place was to respond to tell me that you understood this directive, or that you're going to just obey the directive, right? You're going to be compliant. So compliance, or you're going to respond that, okay? So because some students, they don't know that right off, they don't operate in their household that way. So oh, okay, Kia, I'm going to get back to your question. So they don't operate in that way, but you have to assert that so that kids understand the difference, students understand the difference between whether you're asking a question and whether you're giving them a directive. Because some things, if you ask or make them feel like that it's optional, then sometimes they will react as if it was optional. Let me give you an example. I have a student that talked. I warned the child not to talk. So now it's time to do another layer of changing something so that I can get the behavior I need. I need them to stop talking. So what I will do is that I will assert my leadership in the classroom and say, I need you to change your seat. I want you to sit here instead of there. So I need you to move now. So you hear my voice, and I'm not yelling, but I want you to move now. Now this is letting the student know that that is not an option. You must move, and I want you to do it now, not later. Not when you feel like it, not when you're finished with your conversation, but now. So there's no misunderstanding of when I wanted the child. I was fixing to move. She wasn't listening to me. Everybody in the classroom heard me say, I want you to move now. And there's nothing else that needs to be said. Either you're going to comply, or you're going to pretend that you understood the directive, right? Um, Gosh, it's so much. Oh, so much. Okay, so proximity and movement within the classroom. Listen, you can't sit behind your desk and think that you're going to have control over behavioral problematic classrooms. It's not going to happen. Might as well go ahead and try and get in shape, okay? Because you're gonna walk around that classroom. I had a band teacher who had a huge classroom, and he always wanted to teach math. So he got certified in math. I will never forget Mr. Black. Hi, Mr. Black, if you ever watching. Okay. Mr. Black said that he was concerned about getting his adequate steps in because he had a smaller classroom teaching math. And don't you know, he got more steps in a smaller class teaching math than he did in a big band room. It's because you got to move around the room, friends. You have to um, get your body in between commotions, stand. Sometimes you're not saying a word, but when you see that there may be some off task behaviors, you can just move your body. Stand right next to where you see maybe a commotion is happening. And if they do not get the hint with you standing there, you can say, can I help you with something? Do you have a question? Oh my gosh, because I thought we were doing this. You do not have to say, get back to work. We're all doing this. Why aren't you working? It can be matter of factly, friend, we're going to get back to work. Hi, what are we doing over here? I'm curious. Let's move over. And then you're moving around the room, because the red zone is the zone furthest from the teacher. Green zone, oh, green zone is furthest from the teacher. Red zone is with the teacher because they're going to straighten up. Okay. So I learned that from Tools for Teachers by Fred Jones. And I remember this for the rest of my life because at the time I think it was Mike Jones, a rapper that was real popular. And I was like, Fred Jones, he like the king of classroom management. That's how I remembered his name. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this segment by talking to Kia. And Kia said that her son felt like he cannot ask his teacher questions. He feels like he doesn't feel like anyone's comfortable enough to ask questions or interact because she's always has something sarcastic to say. Okay, so what I would invite you to do, Kia, is to have your son, the next time the teacher has something sarcastic to say, to try to write down verbatim what the teacher said, in what was said before and what the teacher said after. And then because sometimes sarcasm can be a perception thing, but it sounds like this is a consistent thing. And so I would have a conversation with the teacher after your son brings the dialogue, the verbatim dialogue to you. And I would just approach it in a way of, you know, this is how my son is feeling, and not accusatory of this is what you're doing. But my son feels uncomfortable because he feels like there's an excess of sarcasm being used in the classroom, and he's not feeling like he's in a safe environment to learn. What can we do to change this? And so if the teacher probably will act oblivious or not knowing what is being said, then you can come back and say, exactly, on this day he heard this, and then this is what he said, you said, is this so? And you just wait. Now we may be getting the context wrong, but at least you are approaching that a little bit more diplomatic, instead of saying you're being sarcastic. This is not acceptable. You're not being professional. Sometimes people don't know any other way to be, because this is how they grew up. This was their first job out of college. This is how they act towards everyone. And they didn't have social and emotional training, specific training like we have. However, this may be your child's teacher for the rest of the year. And so we are trying to keep our relations intact and not be accusatory, but also address the situation. So I hope that helps you, Miss Kia. Okay. I have had a pleasure talking with you guys today, and I am so happy to give these tips for teachers, and I hope it's helpful. If you have any questions, you can comment on this live, or you can comment on the YouTube channel Essential Pedagogy, and I will get back to you any questions you may have. And I hope this was helpful to you. Next week, I think I'm going to be talking about some of the books I have read. One of them I read over the summer. It's really good. I want to give you another synopsis of that. Also, I'm reading a good book by Darius Daniels, and I don't know if anybody knows anything about Darius Daniels, but Darius Daniels wrote a book about relational intelligence. It's really closely related to emotional intelligence, but let me tell you, the wisdom that has come through this book, I am dying to share that with you, because I feel like I see this in the classroom and in my profession all the time. And I think everybody could use the information in this book. So without further ado, I want you to go and subscribe to my channel, Essential Pedagogy Podcast, on YouTube. And if you want to be reminded to see the show, then I want you to hit the notification bell and I appreciate y'all. I want to know exactly what you want to know so that I can help you. I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes I think that the knowledge I have in education is ordinary because I see it all the time, but sometimes it's extraordinary and it's unique to my profession, and I want you guys to be able to know what I know. So until next time, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.